Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stand Up and Take Action with Stand Up California. We have yet another super informative episode for you all today. And with the midterm election right around the corner, we hope that there are some key takeaways that you take from today's episode. I do just want to clarify that Stand Up California is a nonpartisan grassroots organization, but we do believe that you should make your voice count and vote. If you are not already connected to your local community of advocates, please ensure you are connected by going to standupcalifornia.com, where we connect you to your county community of advocates, which is really nice. You get to communicate with each other and share important things coming up. Now, our guest today is absolutely amazing and a wealth of knowledge. I know sometimes he doesn't like to hear that, but he is a super wealth of knowledge. You guys are going to learn so much. I first met him when I personally, as a volunteer, not with any organization affiliation, got involved with his campaign, and he was running for California State Senate, and he ran an amazing grassroots campaign against Senator Barbara Gilletta. He is now my go-to man for anything election integrity, also technology, but we'll leave that for another episode. Mitch, you're going to have to come back. He is a business owner and an incredible friend and family man, and I'd like to introduce you all to Mitch Clemmons.
That's a great introduction. Thanks, Karen.
How
Thanks
are
for
you?
having me on your show.
No, thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
Doing great. It's Monday morning, so everything is getting going today. Had to get some stuff going at work today, and being a plumber, and it's raining outside. We don't get a lot of extra calls. People think that when it rains, we get a lot of extra calls. We don't, but we usually get one or two. A lot of the calls go away because people don't want the work done. They don't want us walking in their houses while it's raining outside. But we always get a couple of people that are flooding in their backyard. So it's a fun day for plumbers when it rains outside. So happy Monday.
Happy Monday to all the plumbers out there. So
Right.
Let's go back a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, because now people are like, what's this plumber talk happening? And also, I want you to end describing, telling us a little bit about yourself with what is your favorite ice cream? That is a question we ask all of our guests
Oh,
in the
all
beginning
right.
of the episode. So go ahead.
All right. Well, so I've been a plumber for about 30 years. I started plumbing when I was 19 years old. So I guess more than 30 years now. Been involved in the trade for most of my adult life. And when I first got involved with plumbing, I got hired. It was at a company that was run by some a Christian family, and the managers were Christian, and so was I at the time. And God made it really obvious that I got the job because of him. So I recognized early on that God made me a plumber for his purposes. And so a few years later, about 8 years later, I guess, something like that, I started my own plumbing business. I got my own contractor's license, and it's been, I call it the ministry that God's given me, because I serve my community, I serve my employees, I serve my customers, I serve my vendors. I try to exemplify Jesus in everything I do. I don't always achieve that. I fail because I'm a dirty, rotten sinner, but by God's grace, I've been able to be successful in the plumbing. It's funny. A lot of plumbing companies out there, one of my goals going into plumbing was I wanted to get rid of all these plumbing companies that are ripping off the people, the homeowners, the people living in their homes. And so I went into business, and it's a difficult area because serving homeowners, you end up with tons and tons of bosses, and everybody's your boss. Every customer is your boss. But it's funny, if you serve them well, they call you back and they tell their friends and family about you. And so because I just did a good job of serving my customers well, and training my employees well, and teaching them how to be servants, we've grown our company over the years. And I've helped a lot of guys get their own license. I've created competition for myself, I tell everybody. But I have a lot of other guys that are good plumbers. They took really good care of my customers. And so I actually help them get their license, because even though it creates competition for me, it gets more plumbers out there taking good care of people. And I've been successful in helping get rid of some of these ripoff plumbers in our neighborhoods. In fact, there was a Mike Diamond Plumbing, which is one of those corporate plumbers that spends hundreds of thousands a month, and then they have to recover those costs, so they charge exorbitant prices. And I've hired 3 or 4 guys out of the branch that's over here in, I think it's Fullerton. And I heard just this last year that they shut down. So that branch.
Wow.
So I was really pleased that we were able to get one of those plumbers that's really taken advantage of people out of our neighborhoods. And that's been my goal. I'm a husband. I've got a wife of 24 years, 3 children. We've homeschooled all 3 of them all the way through. We saw early on some of the craziness going on in the public school system, so we got ahead of the curve. And it's not possible for everybody, but we try to encourage as many people as we can to homeschool your kids, especially nowadays with this nonsense going on within our government and the legislation, which is part of the number 2 reason why I ran for state senate, was because I wanted to. I say that election integrity is our number 1 issue, because if we don't have election integrity, we lose everything now. And our kids are our number 2 issue, because that's our future. That's what's going to carry us into the future. If we lose our kids, tomorrow's lost. So that's why I ran for Senate. But anyways, I've got my wife, my 3 kids. My wife runs the office at work. My daughter helps with accounting, data entry. My oldest son is one of my plumbers, and he's learning how to manage the company. He's 23 years old, very responsible young man. So I'm very pleased with how God has, in spite of me being a dirty, rotten sinner, blessed me in my life. And favorite ice cream, I don't know. I like a lot of ice creams, but I think rainbow sherbet would probably be my favorite. But it's not technically not an ice cream because there's no cream in it. So Rocky Road, maybe. How about that?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a very good one. And I wish we weren't on here so early, because every time I ask that question, I have to like go run and get some ice cream. Mitch, I'm going to tell you, your face lit up as you are just talking about your business and your family, and you have, your business now, your family is involved in it, which is incredibly awesome. What we strive for in Stand Up California is accountability, and ensuring that we're building those relationships with our legislators, that they are hearing our voices. And as you're speaking about your plumbing business, I think about, wow, I feel like we should have these relationships with everybody, including our plumbers. Like, we should have them be honest and not overcharge people. You're right, because many of us are just getting by. Everything has gone up in California, the politics. And I just feel like you are such a great service to our people. So I applaud you for that. I applaud you for your own integrity in your business. And if anybody needs a plumber, we'll make sure to link all of Mitch's information below.
Well, thank you for that.
Of course. So you touched on 2 reasons why you ran for Senate. One of them is election integrity, and then 2 is our children. But I want to ask you, at what point did you think, okay, enough is enough? What was your breaking point of like, I've seen enough of, this happening to our children or this happening in our elections, that I'm going to just go in and file my paperwork to run for Senate against the incumbent, Bob Archuleta?
To be totally honest with you, God had burdened me because I was seeing in 2020, I guess. Yeah, it was when the pandemic hit. I was really upset when I saw business leaders they were shutting their businesses. Business owners were shutting their businesses. So our leaders in our communities that were business owners weren't leading. And I saw pastors shutting the doors to their churches. And so I was really frustrated with pastors because I think God sets before the church an open door, and we shouldn't be shutting them. And that's kind of a flippant way to talk about that. But it was very frustrating for me. And then also our elected officials, I always assumed that people who ran for office and were elected were there for the most part to serve our best interest. They just had different ideas about things. I didn't realize how corrupt the system was until that time. And God burdened on my heart that I needed to run for office. But I was just angry at everybody at the time. And when he told me that, when he laid that on my heart, I did the Jonah thing. I said, "Yeah, sure, God." And I got on the ship for Tarshish and was sailing away. I didn't want to go to Nineveh. I saw all these idiots and I didn't want to help them. And I think that's kind of what Jonah's heart was. He was just like, these people are wicked, evil people. Why would I want to help them? And so I think I had that heart. That's not God's heart. God wants to reach the lost. He wants to give good things if people are just willing to receive. But most people aren't these days, I think. And so I prayed about it for about 8 months, and November 1st had rolled around, and I had it in my head that I had to file by November 1st of that year in order to run for or maybe, I'm sorry, it was 2021 when all this occurred, not 2020. I had helped with the recall Newsom thing and saw how that just was not enough people were getting involved. So the grassroots, the people in California and the leaders were avoiding these things. And then the election occurred, and it was just unbelievable to me that, I'm getting my dates mixed up. That was probably 2019 now that I'm thinking about it. But it's 2021 when I was praying through all these things. In the past, I'd helped with the recall Newsom thing and saw that leaders weren't getting involved, saw that that the election just didn't look like it was legit. The 2020 election didn't seem legit. Obviously, I'm very much believe that the election was stolen from President Trump. And I'm also very nonpartisan. I think there's corruption in both parties. I'm a registered Republican, but that's only because I'm trying to pick the lesser of two evils. I think our career politicians on both sides of the aisle are ruining things. And that was kind of the reason why it pushed me over the edge to say, okay, I got to do it. And on that day, on November 1st of 2021, I just felt really burdened. God really was challenging me in my heart that day. And I was reading in Psalms because, like I had told you, I was angry at everybody. So I decided 8 months prior that I was going to start reading through Psalms because I wanted to, I knew I needed encouragement, and that's a good place to find it. And so I ended up in Psalm 82. That day, I was supposed to be right around Psalm 125, but for some reason that day, I opened up my Bible to Psalm 22 or Psalm 82. And I'm not a guy that thinks that, you just flip open your Bible and God speaks to you. But sometimes he does, because God does whatever he wants. And that day he certainly did. And Psalm 82, verse 1 through 4 reads like this. It says, I'll read verse 1 and 2 first. It says, God stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? And so what God's saying here is, he sits above all these people that think they're gods, that think they're the rulers. And he says, how long are you guys going to judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? And when I read that scripture, God showed me in my mind these wicked legislators that were legislating craziness on our schools, on our children, for elections, for all kinds of nonsense. It was unbelievable to me because I started paying attention to the legislation coming out of our state government. It was unbelievable to me how ugly this stuff was. And so he showed me this picture of these legislators. And then I read verse 3 and 4, and it says, defend the poor and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy. And he pierced my heart with verse 3 and 4. Deliver the poor and needy and free them from the hand of the wicked. And when I read that, he showed me in my mind these people that are they're kept in bondage to poverty, to live in poverty because of the policies that come from our government, mostly from the Democratic side, but a lot of Republicans support a lot of this stuff too. And those things are that they show people, they tell the voters, hey, we're going to give you these free handouts, you know, which we used. I'm not against social welfare where it's necessary, but the purpose of a social welfare system should be to help people get out of that situation, not to keep them there. And what they've done with the social welfare system is they've kept people in bondage. They say, hey, we'll give you this free stuff. You just keep voting for us. And so that's the symbiotic relationship they have. That's the reciprocal relationship now that, unfortunately, the Democrat Party, which used to be a really great party, that's what they've become, is this party that promotes, we'll give you free stuff, just keep voting for us, and to keep them in power.
Right.
And he showed me that, and he just really impressed on my heart, are you going to get up and do this or not? And it was such a heavy burden for 3 days. And I don't say 3 days to like relate it to Jesus being in the grave. Somebody brought that up once. It was just 3 days. 3 days, it was just a heavy burden for me. I was stuck literally in bed, just overwhelmed with, because I committed to God that I was going to do it. And so I filed my paperwork and I ran. That's the explanation. I mean, there's a lot of, was it this thing or that thing that caused me to run? There was a lot of things. And I think God, in order to get me to the place where I would say yes, he had to show me all those things. And so I was researching, I was looking, I had an interest in it. And there's certainly not just one thing. There's a lot of craziness going on in California. And so I filed my paperwork actually to run for U.S. House. Eric Ching, who ran for U.S. House District 38, I met him at an event earlier that year, and he told me he'd help me file my paperwork. And so he did. He helped me file my paperwork to run for District 38. He was going to run for District 39. And in December, after they did the redistricting, me and Eric Ching were in the same district. And so we had several meetings. I kept telling him, look, God by his Holy Spirit isn't going to raise two people up to run for the same office. And he said, well, and I thought he was being flippant. He would say, that's fine. God will show me. But he's just faithful. The guy, that man, as I've come to know him, is a man that is completely full of faith. And somebody brought to my attention that Senate District 30 overlapped almost identically the district he was running in. And so we were able to run together and help each other out. Our volunteers helped each other on. When we go door knocking, we'd all do it together. And as you know, we did that with Jessica Martinez running for Assembly District 56 and Raul running for Assembly District 64. And so we had 4 of us candidates that all loved Jesus, running for the same reasons, running for God's purposes. And all of our volunteers were helping each other. And it was a really neat time. Yeah. Very blessed time.
You guys were like the Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
and you came together, and you guys were called, or still, it has gone on because Raul Ortiz is still running for state assembly. Jessica Martinez is still running for, Michelle Martinez is now running for state assembly. But you guys were called You First. And do you want to just give us a little brief explanation as to why the name?
Yeah, so Eric had been praying, Eric Ching had been praying about what his campaign slogan should be. And it came to a point where he felt desperate about it, kind of like I was on that November 1st day. And he was adamant that, God, you need to give me a slogan. I need a slogan. And right at that moment, God said, you first. And what he perceived God was showing him was it's God first. And it's funny because the slogan "You First" actually has come to take on a dual meaning, and I think that's God's wisdom. It's God first. That's number one, but we also say it's the people's interests first, the people first. And that's what's wrong with our current political establishment. You're talking about me, appreciating that I serve my community, and we need plumbers that serve their communities. We need people that serve in general. And that's the problem that's happened in our society, I think, is a lot of people are out to serve themselves. And it's especially true in politics. And so that's our whole focus was not to run for office for our own benefit so that we can enrich ourselves or move special interests forward and get kickbacks like so many politicians do. We want to go into this to fix what's broken for the people. So.
And we appreciate that here at Stand Up California. I mean, I've been part of organizations since 2019, California Freedom Keepers, Freedom Keepers United. I'm now the executive director of Stand Up California. And our purpose has been to oppose those bad bills that got us here, right? It started with medical freedom and bodily autonomy. Then during COVID, we saw how they came down with mandates that made absolutely no sense, right? They wanted, at one point, they wanted employers to mandate it for their employees, and that was just outrageous. But something that I always tell people is I can be at the Capitol day in, day out, trying to oppose, trying to change the minds, but it starts with who we are electing and who, is standing up and saying, I'm going to be at the front lines and I'm going to run exactly how you said it. You had to pray about it, and God just told you got to do it. You filed your paperwork, and you had so many volunteers. Again, I was briefly part of Mitch's volunteer team, or the Youth First campaign team, and it was an incredible time. I mean, everybody just came together. And I think that's also something that is so telling about all of you guys. You united people. You were united as candidates. And I think you set a precedent, because now I see a lot more candidates, coming together and doing these town halls and talking to their future constituents. But that just reminded me of, we need to unite with the individuals who are, yes, lobbying in Sacramento, meeting with the legislators, trying to put forth good legislation, but also support the ones that are, running for these offices as well. So I thank you so much for that,
Yep.
Mitch. As I mentioned, the midterm election is right around the corner, March 5th to be exact. Something that I have learned personally is, one, to check your ballot. I've helped many people recently whose ballots have been changed from, a certain party to an NPP, which is a no party preference. And correct me if
People's
I'm wrong.
registrations.
Yes.
Yep.
With a no party preference, you won't see any presidential candidates on your ballot in March, not until the general election in November. I know exactly who I'm voting for president, and I'm thinking national election, but I'm also acting locally, because we have a lot of, local seats that are on our ballots, and these are the seats that directly affect our communities. I've said I've done some personal volunteering for candidates, and that's how I first met Mitch. But on our ballots, we'll see city council, board of supervisors, state assembly, state senate, LA County. We'll see the DA election, which is a huge deal. If you're not, we've got counties in Santa Clara and Alameda and all over the place, all throughout California. But in LA, the LA district attorney election is very big. So, Mitch, break it down for us. Where do we even begin talking about election integrity, and why is it something that should be a focal point us going into this March 5th election?
Well, I'm going to really simplify a couple of things. There's a lot of detail I can go into, but we'll try to keep some real simple concepts. The first being that
and if I could stop you right there. Sorry, I realized that I said midterm election and I meant to say primary election.
Yes.
The primary election, March 5th. So I just wanted to correct myself.
Yes. Got it.
Go ahead, Mitch.
So one of the biggest, Los Angeles County, I've discovered, is one of the places, California in particular, LA County, is where they develop and perfect ways of destroying the integrity of our elections so that they can manipulate them to their desires. And we export it from here across the nation. So when other people in other states say they want California to fall off into the ocean, I understand why, because so much that affects our nation comes out of California. So when California is bad, the nation is greatly affected by it. And one of the biggest, I mean, we've heard about the machine manipulation. We do need to get rid of the machines because they can manipulate through the machines. But probably the number one issue, especially here in California, is the excess ballots. So, for example, in Los Angeles County for the 2022 election, there was 5.6 million registered voters in LA County. And LA County has 10 million residents in it. California's 40 million. So we're a quarter of the population of California in one county. Also, there are 40 states in the United States that have less than 10 million people. So LA County is bigger than 40 US states. We have a huge impact here in California and across the nation just in our county. And 5.6 million registered voters is the number of registered voters. The Election Integrity Project California and Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit back in 2017 against California or LA County, that they needed to remove 1.7 million voters from the rolls that were not eligible actual voters. People that had moved, people that had died, people who don't have a legal right to vote in some way or another in LA County. And they won the lawsuit. In 2019, the judge awarded or said that Judicial Watch, EIPCA's lawsuit, that LA County had to remove these 1.7 million voters. But they didn't have to do it. They had to do it after 2 federal election cycles, because there's this rule about you have to send out postcards to the people you're going to remove to make sure they're not actually there. And if they don't return the postcard, then you can remove them, blah, blah, blah. So in February last year, Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch made an announcement that they're removing 1.3 million voters from the voter rolls in LA County. Victory. Not 1.7, 1.3. So that's better than nothing. So I was glad we're finally going to get it done. So I waited a couple weeks. And then after that time period was up, I called LA County. I got a new copy of the voter rolls. I compared that copy of the voter rolls to the copy I had from the 2022 election. So in February of 2023, or March 6th, I got a new copy. When I ordered the copy, I inquired of the Los Angeles County Registrar of Voters person I was dealing with if this reflected the voters that have been removed according to the news reports I heard. And he said, yes, it does. Well, interestingly, there was still 5.6 million voters on the voter rolls. And after I compared them, I matched up the voter ID to concatenated the voter ID and the name and address, and compared it from the old to the new, and realized that if they took them off, all the voters got put right back on, because there's only 184,000 new voters. So if they got rid of 1.3 million and there's only 184,000 new, that means 1.1 million got put right back on. Why does that matter? Because in California, they mail a ballot to every registered voter, whether you request one or not. They changed this, in the last cycle. And a lot of states are trying to get back, because a lot of states started doing this, and they're trying to get away from that. They forced this on us with COVID. The problem with it is now there are, in LA County alone, at least 1.1 million and as many as 2 million ballots that are not going to people who actually live at the address or can vote. And where are those ballots going? In California, they got rid of the signature verification so that you can't reject a ballot based on just signature verification failure. In California as a whole, that law was passed. And so if the signatures don't match, then it doesn't matter. They can still count your ballot. There has to be another reason. Well, additionally, at LA County, I've been to the processing centers. I've been to the polling locations. I've been to the processing centers. I go and watch and see what these people are doing. And at the processing center that was in City of Industry at the old Fry's Electronics, they had a machine that did the signature verification. And I believe it was 3 ballots every 2 seconds went through the machine. And it was very few that it rejected. The rejected ones actually would go to people that would actually look at them. But they have a machine doing this. And you mentioned earlier, I have a technology interest as well. I can assure everybody out there listening that to compare a digital signature, if you're using the standard of 11 points of looking at that and comparing them, it's not possible to do 3 every 2 seconds in a machine that supposedly isn't connected to the internet. And even if it was, it wouldn't be fast enough to be able to do that. So their machine is doing it. There's not people looking at the signatures. So they've made it so that fraudulent ballots could be turned in even without a signature and end up getting counted because our processes aren't able to identify those fraudulent ballots. And it makes it possible for anybody to turn in fraudulent ballots. So it makes it really easy for anybody that is compelled to cheat in our elections. And, you know, as a Bible-believing Christian, I'm not going to cheat. Mm-hmm. So who's going to cheat? Those that don't have the same moral foundation. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that happen across the country in mostly Democrat races, but certainly in Republican races as well, where, I mean, Republicans are doing it as well. It's enabled corrupt politicians, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, to cheat in California without any fear of reprisal. In fact, there's no good mechanism for actually prosecuting people in California if they do commit fraud. Wow. First of all, you can't catch them because the processes don't allow it. So we have this right to make sure our ballot's counted. We have a right to challenge a ballot before signature verification occurs. We can challenge the signature verification. But in LA County, there's no way to challenge it because a machine does it. So you can't view it. You know, you go to Orange County and they have computers set up with all the people that are checking these signature verifications, and you can watch them checking them, and you can challenge them in real time. You can be an observer and be there and say, "Hey, I want to challenge this one." You can go hand a challenge to the supervisor, and they'll take a second look at it. But in LA County, there's no way to do that, and so that's true in a lot of other California counties as well. You know, it's funny talking about election integrity. I'll also mention that in San Francisco, I don't know, did you see the news? No. We have a Chinese national.
Oh, yes.
That has been appointed that's going to run the elections in San Francisco County, I think. I don't think it's the city. I think it's the county. I'm not sure. It's San Francisco County or city. She's a Chinese national. She is not a citizen of the United States. She doesn't have legal right to vote in our federal elections in the United States. And yet she's appointed, this lady from China who moved here in 2019. She's appointed as the top election official in San Francisco. It's incredible what's going on in California. And so the biggest thing I think people need to be aware of is that it is messed up, and people want to know, what can I do to fix it? And that's the thing, is we need practical things we can do. And there are practical things we can do. There's a huge effort to identify bad registrants that shouldn't be on the voter rolls, and remove them from the voter rolls. It's a county by county process. Each county has to do that individually. But as I mentioned earlier, they put all the voters that they lost to a California Supreme Court judge ruled against LA County and said, you have to remove these people. And they did, but they just put them right back on. And I don't, with our current VA, with our current law enforcement, with our current board of supervisors, there's nobody who's willing to stand up and stop the potential for fraud in our elections in LA County. So in LA County, what can we do? I think it's really important that the people do get involved, that we do go out and help canvass. Patriot Force California is doing some of those efforts. Election Integrity Project California is also doing, they have a new effort that they're still taking volunteers to sign them up to do poll watching and poll observing. I think that's important. One of the other things that I don't know if the opportunity still exists, but I was encouraging people to apply to become election workers for the county in LA County, because if you become an election worker, now you're on the inside and you get to actually be part of the process.
Yeah.
Not to disrupt anything, but so that we can help ensure the integrity of the process from the inside out. Not only be a poll observer and go watch, but become a poll worker so you're on the inside helping to make sure things are integrous. And then reporting anything that looks suspicious, because they kicked out the election observers at a certain time, and the election workers are still in there in the processing centers doing stuff, and we don't get to see what we're supposed to be able to see what, but they don't allow us. So unfortunately, I don't have real good news for LA County, but if you're in a different county, certainly you should be getting involved, and we do need to vote. So I've come to the place where I'm encouraging people that the most important thing we in LA County can do for election integrity is to show up on election day and vote in person and request a paper ballot. Bring your mail-in ballot with you. You don't even have to open it. You aren't going to use it. But that way, if they challenge you and say, oh, you've already voted, because we've seen this happen. If they tell you that you've already voted, you'll have your ballot with you. You can say, no, I haven't. Here's my ballot. I haven't even opened it yet. How can I have voted? Mm-hmm. You need to ask for a regular ballot so you can vote at the machine. If they will not allow you to vote with a regular ballot, if they try to give you a provisional ballot, that likely will not be counted. And if it is, it will be counted in addition to the other ballot that was put out there in your name. So that other ballot is probably negating your ballot. So whether or not they try to get you to use a provisional ballot, if they try to force you to use a provisional ballot, you ask for a supervisor. If they still will not give you a regular ballot, you should call the sheriff and file a report. And I have a lot of pushback from people in election integrity circles that say that doesn't do any good. But that's wrong. It does do good. Now there's an official record with our constitutional law enforcement authority, the sheriff. There's a record that there was fraud that occurred on your particular ballot. If enough people do that in LA County, we'll have a real lawsuit. So you need to make a report. Now, if they tell you you voted and they give you a regular ballot, you don't need to call the sheriff, but you should still fill out an affidavit and get it turned into the Election Integrity Project California, because they'll accept those things so they can, if they get enough of those types of affidavits, they can also file a lawsuit. That's what they do. They're a nonpartisan organization as well. They're just trying to ensure the integrity of our elections for all voters. That would be the biggest thing I would say, is make sure you vote. You get people out to vote on election day in person with a paper ballot. That's the way to make sure you vote, is you don't let them give you a provisional. In addition to that, there's a lot of people that don't vote often. They're low propensity voters. And we need to encourage them to come out and vote. But if they won't, as much as my election integrity friends hate it, I'm going to tell you, you should go get their ballot. Help them fill it out. Tell them, open it up. Let's fill it out. I'll go turn it in for you. We need to do ballot harvesting on the corrupt people who want to cheat. They'll collect ballots and fill them out themselves, which is illegal, and they can't get caught. I'm not going to encourage anybody to do such a thing, because my integrity says that I shouldn't be cheating in any way. And if it's illegal, I shouldn't be doing it. Plus, if we ever do get prosecuted, If they ever do prosecute people for doing this stuff in California, which I hope that day comes, I don't want to find out any of my friends were cheating and they have to go to jail. Sometimes we get desperate and frustrated at the evil taking over, and we try to fight like they do. We should not do such a thing. But we should collect the ballots from the people that won't vote. Have them fill them out. Have them vote. You can encourage them. You can't compel them to vote a certain way. You can encourage them to fill out their ballot and vote. And if you go to voters that you know have conservative values, which occurs on the right and the left, you can get those ballots from those people, knowing that they're probably voting for the right things. If they're people that have families, they're not going to be voting against kids. Get their ballots, get them turned in. People that absolutely don't want to vote because they're irritated at our system. A lot of people have given up. Go get their ballots. Make sure they know how important it is. You know what, not to talk about partisan elections, but one of the things I've noticed that the Trump organization's doing is they are trying to get everybody possible out to vote so that they can overwhelm the polls and beat the cheat. For example, if 80% of the people show up and vote, if I was running, for instance, if 80% of the people voted for me, they would have to come out. That means they only get 20% voting for whoever the opponent is. They would have to come up with another 60% of cheated ballots. They only have so much they can cheat with. I have arguments that, oh, they can cheat bigger with the machines. This is true. If they do cheat bigger and they win against legitimate candidates that should have won, at the very least, they've put out much more evidence for me to find. And so we can come after them. We need to get every vote to the polls this election, especially this primary, because this primary matters. You mentioned that Trump might not be on your ballot. The party matters, because on the Democrat side, if you're no party preference or you're registered Republican, the Democrat Party has chosen that you can vote for their candidate in the primary. But the California GOP has chosen to have a closed primary. And what that means is that in order to vote for a Republican candidate for president, you must be a registered Republican. And so if you want to vote for Trump or Nikki Haley or DeSantis, they're not going to be on your ballot if you're not registered Republican. And one of the things we found is that a lot of people that had to renew their driver's license at some point, when they go to the DMV, there's a little checkbox. And if you overlook it, you will automatically be deregistered as a Republican and put as a no party preference.
Oh, wow.
And we're encouraging people that there's a deadline. I don't know if we've passed it already, but if we haven't, it's in the next few days, that you have to fix your registration to make sure that the presidential candidates for Republican are on your ballot. The way you do that is you go to the SOS website. I'm drawing a blank. ca.sos.gov, I believe. I'm drawing a complete blank right now.
We'll add it in the description box.
Perfect. And you re-register to vote or you check your registration, and if it's wrong, fix it, because you need to be able to make sure you're registered properly. If you're an independent or no party preference voter, you deregistered as a Republican because you are fed up with the party. I get it. I understand. I completely get it. But you need to be registered as a Republican so you can vote in this primary. If you're not registered as a Republican, you do not get to vote. So make sure you're properly registered to make sure your vote has the most impact as possible. And for LA County, that's the best advice I can give for election integrity. There are things we should be doing. We should be identifying false registrants. We should be looking at other anomalies. There's a lot of things to look at. And there are efforts going on in LA County to do those things to a certain extent. How much impact they'll have in this election round, I don't see much of an impact until after 2024. It's important stuff. It is important for us to fix it in the future. But right now we're in the middle of election season. And I think the biggest thing we need to do is get people out to vote, the California GOP and also the LA County GOP have both put forward their election integrity program is to bank your vote. And what they mean by that is fill out your mail-in ballot and send it in as early as possible. Your mail-in ballot, if you mail it in, has at least 13 touch points where it's handled and could potentially be manipulated. I'm not saying there is fraud. I'm not saying that there's any particular people committing fraud. I can't accuse anybody because I haven't seen any of it. They don't, it's not out where you can see it. There's 13 touch points when you mail it in. There's at least 9 if you take your mail-in ballot, fill it in, and drop it in a drop box. If you go and drop it in at the ROV, the number's even less because you have one less person or 1 to 2 less people touching it from the drop box to the ROV. So if you go straight over to Norwalk to the county records building, and you turn it in right there at that drop box or inside, there's a lot less handling going on with your ballot. If you show up on election day in person and vote in person, it's down to 3. Some will argue 5. It could be more than that. It depends on the process, certain things where your ballot could go. But the amount of people touching your ballot is greatly reduced by voting in person. That's why we stress how important it is. But LA County GOP and the LA GOP and California GOP are promoting voting by mail as early as possible, which is, and they call that their election integrity program, which really disappoints me because I was trying to get on the election integrity committee for the LA GOP. I'm a voting member. I wanted to try to fix what's broken, at least in LA County. I was encouraged by our chairperson that I would have that latitude to be able to talk to our different assembly districts in LA County and try to make an impact and help get the proper messaging out in LA County. But when it came down and they didn't appoint me as the chair of the election integrity committee for the LA GOP, they appointed another gentleman. He didn't really get involved very much or do a lot. He's a great guy, but he just didn't do much with election integrity. He watched the videos that came out of California GOP, which were useless. And they appointed me the vice chair. Well, the person that was the chair stepped down and they appointed a new chair. And they pretty much ignored me. I didn't go from vice chair to chair. In fact, what they did in LA County is they adopted the California GOP policy, which is to vote early with your mail ballot. And it's really disappointing to me because I want the conservative party to stand for conservative values and not embrace the destruction of our elections. And that's what I see happening. I'm really disappointed. But I'm not surprised.
Wow. Mitch, I just want to say thank you very much because not only did you answer my question, but you answered my following questions that I had for you. I was going to ask, what can people do? How can they make a difference? I just want to emphasize that you did speak directly to LA County, but Stand Up California is in all, we're spread through all California counties. So this is something that you might want to consider getting involved in your county. Because we don't, Mitch, I think at one point you mentioned that LA County is it's a testing center of what they can get away with or what's happening or what, they want to implement. And don't let it come to your county yet. Like, get involved now, see how you can get involved like today. And I do want to emphasize that for LA County, 3 out of the 5 board of supervisors are up for re-election. Janice Hahn is one of them, Holly Mitchell, and Catherine Barker, who, by the way, is the only quote unquote conservative. This is the Board of Supervisors, they're nonpartisan seats, but Catherine Barker has come out as being more of a conservative, the only one, right, if we're talking about it, on the Board of Supervisors. And I believe who's running, one of the candidates running against her is Chris Holden. So if you're in those districts, you might want to look at your ballot, see what's going on, learn about the people running against the Board of Supervisors. And something that in Stand Up California, we emphasize a lot is that the Board of Supervisors are able to hire and fire the public health official. You know, your Barbara Ferrer's, just putting it out there. So thank you very much, Mitch, for, I told you guys were going to learn a lot today, and I'm so thankful that you were able to join us. For our last question, where can people find you? Because I know I'm going to get all of the emails asking of where people can connect with you.
Well, so on X or Twitter, you can find me at socalmitch. Same thing on Telegram. And where else am I? I'm on Truth Social under the same thing. As far as like Facebook and Instagram and those types of things, I am on there, but I don't do much on there. You know, I have some pet peeves about that as well. I know you're aware, but I am on Facebook. It's just my name, Mitch Clemmons, and the best way to be informed, I think, is to be on Twitter or on Telegram and following the channels that really are speaking to these issues of today. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mitch. And we will add all of Mitch's information down below. And let us know in the comments if you want Mitch to come back and give us his spiel on technology and Instagram and Facebook, because I assure you that's going to be one interesting conversation that we will have. So thank you again, Mitch, and thank you all for watching. Nothing will change until we stand up California. So let's get to it and have a wonderful week, everybody.
All right. Bye. Thanks.